general pathology and special pathology. So what is general pathology? Now, general pathology is the pathology which deals with the principles, theories, explanation, and classification of facts. That's why this chapter is named as General Pathology of Homeopathy, because we are coming ahead to it. So what is general pathology? Is one which deals with principles, theories, explanations, and classification of facts. The second pathology is special pathology. Now, special pathology is divided into two, that is medical pathology and surgical pathology. Now, medical pathology is the one which deals with the internal disease conditions, and surgical pathology is the one which deals with the external disease conditions. Now, general pathology of modern medicine and of homeopathy, how is it two different? See, in modern medicine, if you see the general pathology, the findings and conclusions are made by the modern medicine and are accepted by all school of medicines. They are the common basis. Actually, what he told is true, whether let it be that time when he was practicing or let it be at this time. For example, if you see, for now we have come ahead with corona disease, right? It's a pandemic and it has caused a global economic crisis. But if you see a vaccine which came ahead, that is Covaxin. Of course, there is Covishield and Covaxin. Now, Covaxin is not entered into the third stage where the data is not got from giving it to the people, human beings. Yet, it was given freely. And what happened? Their conclusion was accepted by everybody. Now, that is what happens with the general pathology of modern medicine. They have certain findings and conclusions, and whatever they tell becomes the basis or common basis, and everybody accepts it. Now, leave that part ahead. But what is general pathology of homeopathy? Now, general pathology of homeopathy is that in homeopathy, it's a special field and it's called homeopathic general pathology because it is concerned with chronic diseases. Yes, so this is the main highlight, why it's called general pathology of homeopathy. Okay. Then Hahnemann's pathology, if you see, is based on dynamical theory of diseases. So if you see, he explains that how do we get disease? So we get disease because of the functional disturbance of our vital principle. This is what you have read in the first few of aphorisms of organon of medicine, and this is what has been conceived. But when Hahnemann brought on the theory of chronic diseases, he reduced a great mass of unsystematized data. Just imagine, when Hahnemann was practicing, there were so many diseases around him, and different diseases you take like jaundice and diabetes and fevers and so many things and diseases, but a proper classification was not there. It was an unsystematic data, like it was just lying around. Now, Hahnemann was a person who not only discovered homeopathy, but he even made it very systematic and classified the diseases. So when Hahnemann brought on the theory of chronic diseases, he reduced the great mass of unsystematized data to order. So he brought it into order by making classification based on general principles. Let's see what it is. So generalization of pathology. Now, Hahnemann simplified the whole subject. The greatest generalization, if you see, was done by Hahnemann. Now, what I'm going to tell is what Hahnemann has told, but you have to understand that it is Stuart Close concept of what Hahnemann is thinking in his mind. So, according to Stuart Close, Hahnemann's greatest generalization was what you know, that is the existence of living specific infectious microorganism as the cause of the greatest part of all true diseases. Yes, now I am talking a bit different because I told you earlier that disease is because of the disturbance of a vital principle. Then how am I telling this? Actually, if you see, this statement has been told by Hahnemann, but it was told by him in relation to Asiatic cholera epidemic. But this is how Stuart Close has put forth. That is, the Hahnemann's greatest generalization was that all diseases are caused because of the existence of the living specific infectious microorganism as a cause of the greatest part of all true diseases. Now, Hahnemann's work on pathology is compared to Cuvier's work on zoology. Now, why I'm talking about Cuvier, whether I can leave him, because sometimes in few exams it has been asked, that is, how is Hahnemann related to Cuvier, and you are supposed to know how he is related. Now, Cuvier was a person who actually classified the animal kingdom. Now, he took the general characteristic of the internal structure of the animals and he classified the animal kingdom into 4 types, that is, vertebrates, mollusks, articulates, and radiates. So, why I am telling this? Again, simple point. Cuvier was a person who classified the zoology depending on the general characteristic of the internal structure of the animals. So again, the general characteristic. And how is it related to Hahnemann? Because Hahnemann classified again the diseases depending on this generalization theory into 4 types. That is occupational or drug diseases, SORA, syphilis, and psychosis. But is this the same order when it actually Hahnemann classified? No. Let's go to the real order, like how actually Hahnemann went about classifying the diseases. Now, if you see occupational and drug diseases, as I told you, lot of data, too many diseases lying around. So Hahnemann wanted to classify the diseases so that our generation could understand how to treat them, how to understand them, and how to cure the patients. So the first category which he removed from the such big lying unsystemized data was that about occupational and drug diseases. So Hahnemann first eliminated the diseases which were local, temporary, and functional. So they were temporary and functional. Functional means just symptoms but no structural abnormalities. Now, which patients brought among themselves by mistakes in diet, regimen, mechanical injuries, undue exertion, indulgences, emotional excess, occupational diseases, etc. So diseases, if you see, which people brought among themselves because of their faulty lifestyle or education, or because of not having a proper diet and regime and not having a proper knowledge about these things. Now, these are not true diseases, but indisposition which disappears on correcting the diet and hygiene. So they don't require any medicine. Now, about this, actually we'll be reading in the next session about indisposition. That time I'll be telling you more further details about it. Now, about syphilis. Now, Hahnemann collected all the data, so he removed the occupational and drug diseases. Now, still there was so much data. How does he classify diseases? So, he came across, he knew about syphilis. Syphilis is a disease which is a venereal disease, a sexually transmitted disease, which has got its own way of working. If you see Kent's work on syphilis, you can understand that even Kent has explained about syphilis. I'm not going into detail of the chapter, but it is about the disease which is caused by actually a bacteria, Treponema pallidum, and the incubation period is around 15 to 20 days. Initially present with genital sores, itching, and inflammatory signs and fever, and later the disease may go just lie inside the body for years together and may at some point of stress come out again, affecting everything from the brain, nerves, and body, etc. So Hahnemann knew about this syphilis very nicely. So Hahnemann collected all the data related to the venereal disease, and syphilis was already considered as a fundamental cause of large number of symptoms and for causing many diseases. Hence, syphilis was separated from the diseases. So like that, you got occupational and drug disease and syphilis. Then the next to come was psychosis. So Psychosis is also, of course, a bacterial disease caused by Neisseria gonorrhea, and of course, it is also a sexually transmitted disease. It's a venereal disease, and the same way it goes for psychosis. You can again refer for more symptoms in Stuart Close other chapters or in Kent, and then you can get the further details about the psychosis. Okay. Now, though psychosis was a venereal disease, they had their own distinct and distinguishing symptoms than syphilis. It was more of urethral discharge and pain and difficulty while urination and all those symptoms. There was presence of specific living organism. Thus, Hahnemann named them as psychosis, which in Greek means figwort. See, now when I'm telling about syphilis and psychosis and the causative organism, for your brain it is easy to understand. But we are talking about an era in Hahnemann period when bacteria didn't even exist. Bacteriology came on later. So that time, still at that time, Hahnemann had such a beautiful brain to realize it and put it forth. So now again, psychosis. Just give me a second. Really sorry, my battery had gone down. Okay, so coming back to, we removed the syphilis, psychosis, and occupational disease, and now we have the SORA. Now, all the other vast number of symptoms were remaining even after separating syphilis and psychosis. So, all the other number of symptoms which were remaining, both acute and chronic, Hahnemann, using inductive logic of Bacon, started discovering the fundamental cause of non-venereal diseases. Now, what is inductive logic of Bacon? For second years or third years who have not studied logic, for them I'll just give about 2 lines. That is, logic is nothing but reasoning. Now, reasoning can be done in 2 ways, that is inductive and deductive. Inductive logic is most commonly used, and actually homeopathy is based on inductive logic. If you ask me why, I'll give you an example. But inductive logic, that is the logic or the science of reasoning, was put forth by Bacon, and the deductive logic was put much ahead by Aristotle. Now, why did I tell that homeopathy is based on inductive logic? Because you have to understand that what did Hahnemann first do when he started developing, or he heard about cinchona bark? He took it himself and tested, and he found that true, it was bringing out intermittent fever, malaria-like symptoms, and he could understand that, yes, this is a fact. Now, after that, what did he do? He took the same thing and he gave to few of his other friends, and they also brought the same symptoms. So he came to the conclusion that cinchona can really bring these symptoms at every single time it is taken by a person. So because of that part only, he came to the conclusion about the law which later come into similia similibus curanter. But this was the first seed, and that's how the inductive logic begins. Now, all the other vast number of symptoms, as I told, Hahnemann, with the inductive logic, he started discovering the fundamental cause of the non-venereal diseases, means diseases which are other than syphilis and psychosis. Now, after searching and collecting and comparing and grouping similar and naturally related symptoms, it is put together all that were similar. In the view of history, logic and experience narrowed till he arrived at one primary cause, that is SORA. So to know more about SORA, actually Hahnemann has written about SORA in his aphorism 80 and 81, and he has given a detail about it. Now, if still you have details, you want to know more about SORA, then of course you can log on to my website homeo.clinic, where I have taken the aphorisms and explained each single aphorism. You can go in detail and study there about all the aphorisms and about Kent too. So that will help you along with those part. So now coming back to SORA, it removed all, see when he invented SORA, it removed all the fictitious diseases. Fictitious means not true or false. So till that time, diseases were considered as single separate entities. For example, like diabetes and jaundice and fever and anemia, diarrhea, etc. was each supposed to be separate. But Hahnemann brought all under the general class of infections. So that was again the generalization which Hahnemann did. Now, that was the first part, that is general pathology of homeopathy. You are supposed to speak in just 2 lines about the theory of chronic diseases, the classification of disease, why general pathology came into existence. Now we come to the second important question of this chapter, that is relationship of bacteriology to homeopathy. Now, Hahnemann's biggest discoveries were, according to Stuart Close, were discovery of specific living organism as the cause of infectious diseases such as cholera. Second, discovery of venereal diseases. And third, relationship of bacteriology to homeopathy. So let's go in detail how he explains, or how will you write this particular question in your exam. So modern bacteriology or science reached to the role of bacteria about half a century after Hahnemann by long independent research. But this theory helped them only in prophylaxis. So once they found out the bacteria too, it could help them only like to maintain good hygienic conditions, sanitation, prophylaxis. But they never could find a proper cure of disease, they failed when cure of disease was considered. Now, like again, let's go to COVID. If you see, of course, the modern bacteriological science or modern virologists found out about the virus, and they found out about what all COVID can do and how many people can die or how are people going to suffer. But it took months and months, yet they have not come out with a proper cure. Now, Hahnemann was the first to perceive and teach parasitical nature of infectious and contagious diseases and chronic diseases in general. So this is what Stuart Close feels, that Hahnemann was the first to feel about the parasitical nature of the disease. Now, Hahnemann's explanation was about cholera. When we are going to about cholera, we'll take like Asiatic cholera epidemic was there. Now, that time, Hahnemann first explained about how did this cholera epidemic start, or what caused or what triggered it. Now, he was talking about the ships and where the actual cholera disease, just came into existence and brought about. So the cholera miasm multiplies and grows enormously. They are minute, invisible living creatures and are contagious matter of cholera. Now, Hahnemann explained the spread of infection of cholera beautifully. He explains that on ships, in the confined spaces, in the dark corners where there's no much of sunlight and water vapor was there, mold was there, and in that condition was that the cholera miasm first came into existence, and then it started growing very fast. Now, this killed many on the ship, but then the few were there who could survive it. So few got habituated to this kind of the cholera disease, and they became resistant to it. But actually speaking, they were carriers. Now, when these few mixed, like after the ship sailed and it was at the shore, that time these people who were not affected by cholera disease, who thought that they are right and they are fine, now these came and met other people on the shore. Now, when they came and mixed with the other people, that time they spread the infection as they carried, because they didn't know that they were carrying these creatures in their clothes, on their dirty hands, on the hair, on the beard, and even on the physicians and nurses, because the ships used to have physicians and nurses, and even they were also the carriers because they were habituated to the bacteria. Now, in this way, it caused epidemic. So that's how cholera epidemic came into existence. Now, before I go about with the next slide, I would like to tell a few things which happened during this cholera outbreak. There were few beautiful things which happened. That is, one is that of course homeopathy helped a lot in the cholera to the cholera patients, and the drugs which came very frequently and helped were camphor, varatramalbum, and podophyllum and cupromet. So in the initial stages, camphor was given, and then cupromet, and then later even varatramal was given when we used to have the severe diarrhea and vomiting and purging. Okay, and after that, like when this cholera outbreak had gone, all the medicines helped. Now the beautiful thing, if you didn't know about the cholera epidemic, is that very nice thing happened, and there were so many people or doctors who turned up against Hahnemann. And do you know why? Because Hahnemann put forth a booklet telling that I am having cure for this particular disease, and if you want, you can get the medicine from me, but then you will have to pay me beforehand for the booklet and the description, then only I'll be giving it out. Now when this happened, lot of people turned against him, telling how absurd, how can you even tell, and what is the proof? But still he maintained. And if you see the British Homeopathic Journal of 1981, a doctor has even praised homeopathy and Hahnemann especially for his beautiful analytical mind and for helping and curing so many cholera patients. And many patients were given this one genus epidemicus, and they didn't get actually cholera, so for helping out people. So then Hahnemann believed that all chronic diseases are from three primarily infectious parasitic sources. As I told, psychosis and syphilis, venereal disease. So Stuart Close put the third one, that is Sora, also into because of parasitic source. But actually, you think, is it? That's a food for thought. You can think and let me know. Now, all chronic diseases show constancy and perseverance. That is, if they are not healed, they will grow inside you and keep on affecting more organs and will rise and grow till the man's lifetime. They are going to be worse with time. So if you think that it's all because of some parasite, how can it grow till the lifetime? Does it have such a long period of action? That's also a food for thought. Now, the word bacteria, bacilli were not discovered during Hahnemann's time. He didn't even have a microscope, but his analytical mind and logical mind understood it. Hence, he uses the word infectious, contagious, and excessively minute, invisible living creatures. Now, if you see the Hahnemann's classification of chronic diseases, this point even Stuart Close agrees. That is, 7/8 of the diseases, of the chronic diseases, were because of SORA, and only 1/8 was due to psychosis. Now, that is about bacteriology of homeopathy. So you are supposed to write about the cholera and about all the points I have been telling you so far. Now we come to the next important short note, that is doctrine of latency. Now, for a second BHM student who does not understand what does latent mean, for explaining a bit about them. If you would have heard of a most common disease we have, that is chickenpox, then you would have also heard about another common disease called as herpes zoster. Now the chickenpox virus goes and sleeps after the infection. It just is latent, or it just sleeps inside our body for some part of time, and when another favorable situation comes, it pops out again with herpes zoster. That it usually sleeps in the nerve. That's why the intercostal nerves are the one which are frequently infected. So what does latency mean? That is sleeping or hiding or lying dormant for certain period of time and coming out again when the situation is favorable. Now, what does doctrine of latency according to Stuart Close mean? Now, SORA, like psychosis and syphilis, can remain latent for a long period of time until the circumstances awaken the disease, slumbering within, thus developing its germs. As I told, Stuart Close is more into germs, so he has been putting this again and again. So, what is the doctrine of latency? That SORA lies latent and waits for a situation until when the situation comes, right time comes, the germs develop again and the SORA becomes again into an active form. Now, this theory is called the doctrine of latency. Now, Hahnemann's theory was confirmed by Behring and other authorities, according to whom tuberculosis occurs in infancy or young age and then remains latent till after life. So this is, as I told, Stuart Close is always into explaining and giving the facts and reasoning so that you understand that why he is telling that particular point. Now, there are two slides in this part that is about development of SORA. Now, theory of latency, you can write about SORA and you can show about development of SORA, but this part is not directly linked. But this comes as a development of SORA, comes as an important question in exam. So this can help you write that too. So if you want more details about development of SORA, as I told about the website, please log on to homeo.clinic and you can find more details there. But let me explain about the development of SORA. How did it occur or how did it start? See, as I told you, when Hahnemann was thinking about SORA, he worked 12 long years and then only he came with the theory of chronic disease. It started with this. This was what this slide shows is how did SORA develop. But at the later part, to tell you that Hahnemann came into the conclusion after 12 years that SORA, though Stuart Close tells it is all about the living creatures and germs, he understood that SORA is become a tendency or a diathesis, so or a predisposition. But because we are studying to Stuart Close, let's stick on to Stuart Close point of view. So how did SORA develop? Now, Moses, 3,400 years ago, in his Leviticus chapter 13 and 21, verse 20, speaks of bodily effects a priest should not have. A priest, if he is going in for priestship, he should not have a malignant itch, or the word used by him was garab. Now, after that, according to Alexandrian translation, when it was translated, it was named as Sora Agaria. That's how we get our name Sora. Now, Talmudic interpreter Jonathan, he told it as gelfed, that is dry itch over whole body. Now, these are the different versions of people who are putting their theories and names, but it is important if you are a fourth year or a PG student. Now, Calmet, that is commentator in English Bible work, tells about leprosy as with violent itching and painful burning after scratching. Now, Plato calls itch as glypikron. I'm just sorry for that. Glycopikron. Actually, this came as one of the short notes during my MD time. So I think that PG students, you can just note it down. Now, Cicero calls itch as dulcidose of scabies. Now, it later spread to Israelites, where it stayed on the external parts of body only. Then it spread to Greece and Arabia and later Europe. But the nature of itching eruptions remained the same. So Sora was always, when in the starting till the developmental form of it, was always on the external parts, that is on the skin. Now, at that time in the Europe, there was another form, that is a form of leprosy took over. Now, that was called Saint Anthony's fire, which again is a short note for PG students of 4th BHMS. Now, Saint Anthony's fire or malignant erysipelas was brought back by returning crusaders in 13th century. Then it spread severely. Now, people modified their personal cleanliness, improvement in hygienic condition. They started wearing cotton clothes, and believe me, it helped. So the severe itching and the erysipelas and the irritation which was there on outside now started reducing, and it just reduced to a common itch. But when leprosy was spreading severely, when leprosy was spreading severely, it was affecting mostly the skin. But the other body parts, when it was only affecting the skin, the other body parts were free. Now, then the disease was, when it started spreading more, and the disease was actually became limited, because when it was a leprosy, because of the itch and the outward experience expression, these people were separated. That's why the disease stayed only there. But now it has become a common itch, and it's only like slight itching or outside complaints, that when people started mingling and they were not even isolated. So then it started spreading more, and the spread was limit, and then it started spreading more, but at the same time the element of safety was lost when this disease took the mild form. The infectious fluid spread and contaminated many. Now by this time SORA had spread to many people. Next important topic is about metastasis. Now these are all the topics which are from Stuart Close, and but little when it comes for exam, it is usually told just metastasis. You have to understand it's from Stuart Close and write. You can even write this is in from Stuart Close chapter General Pathology of Homeopathy and explain it. So what is metastasis mean? Now metastasis is transference of disease from one point to other, not directly connected with it. Now, it is not directly connected with it, but the disease gets transferred. Now, SORA became most infectious and most general of all chronic miasm because the disease metastatized from the skin to internal organs and caused many chronic diseases by external palliative treatment. Now, if you see the example for metastasis, what Stuart Close has given is that he was given example, 3 examples. One is embolism. Now he tells about embolism that, it is just like the vascular clot that which just goes and freely moves and goes and lodges somewhere else and creates a disease somewhere else. Then he told about tumor cells from carcinoma and sarcoma, where either through the lymphatic it spread, or that just it became a big and intended into an another vessel and it spread like that. Now, animal and vegetable parasites were also spreading in the same way. That is through the circulation, through lymphatics, and they were spreading and causing metastasis. All the bacterial diseases and the other infectious diseases were coming into this animal and vegetable parasites. This confirms Hahnemann's theory that infectious parasitic microorganism of SORA. This confirms Hahnemann's theory that infectious parasitic microorganism SORA, when suppressed by local treatment, metastasizes to deeper tissue and organs and develop according to predisposition and environment of the individual, giving rise to secondary symptoms. So what happened because of metastasis? It happened is that the SORA went into the deeper tissues, affected more important and vital organs, but it affected, here Stuart Close was clear that it affected according to the predisposition and the environment of the individual, giving rise to the secondary symptoms. So if you ask the secondary symptoms of SORA, how does it come? According to Stuart Close, it's because of the metastasis. Now, toxicological theory of diseases. Now, according to Hahnemann, disease is a morbid dynamic disturbance of vital force. But Stuart Close, now this part, that is toxicological theory of disease, seems difficult, but it is a very easy section only if you keep your eyes and mind open and you understand it. I know that you are sitting after lunch and your eyes might be droopy, but believe me, it's an important part and will be important for your exam too. So going to toxicological theory of disease. Now Hahnemann told disease is a morbid dynamic disturbance of vital force. Now to this, Stuart Close added that is caused by morbific, that morbific means disease, okay? Caused by morbific agent actually or relatively external to the organism. So this is Stuart Close concept. It was not Hahnemann's concept. Just understand this. Caused by morbific agent actually or relatively external to organism. For every internal effect must have an external cause and vice versa. So that is the universal law of cause and effect. That's where he derives this theory. So for every cause there's effect, from the effect the cause, so vice versa. Okay. Now when you understand, to understand the toxicological theory of disease, you have to understand that it's the same thing which you have learned for an year or two or three. Only thing is that every area, Stuart Close will tell, just put the word toxic. So if you get me, I'll just explain it to you. See, all drugs act. Now, why do drugs act? How do you understand the effect of the drug? Is by drug proving. Now, drug act because of their specific toxic properties. Okay. Now, all, how does bacteria affect you? So, all bacterial diseases are primarily intoxications or toxemias. That means both the disease is toxic and the drug which is able to cure is toxic. Now, the pathologists prove that all pathogenic organisms produce their effect on human beings by producing specific poisons. So, according to pathologists, everything which affects or causes disease is because of poisons, which they secrete, like poison secreted by the parasites, which they secrete when they are either alive or when they are dead. So, gist is, to understand the toxicological theory, you understood the first point that disease is because of the toxemia, drug act because of their toxic properties, and again, pathologists also confirm that is because of the toxemia. Now, toxemia and diseases. Now, Stuart Close goes a point ahead and tells about all the diseases in your, which can run in your mind. You can think how it is possible. How can Stuart Close write like this? I'll go into the detail and about his explanation. So, how are toxemias and diseases related? See, according to Stuart Close, diseases, if the disease is from physical injury, like suppose some knife or some injury, or you just fell down, now that time, because of the injured tissue, will produce a chemical change which will be toxic. Now, if disease is from chemical agent, then of course it is understood it's from a chemical agent. That means because of the poisoning of the organism. Now, if the disease is from mental or physical trauma, then you might think how come it can be toxic? Because according to Stuart Close, any trauma causes toxic physical and chemical changes in the body. That's why because of a mental and physical trauma, we come up with a disease. So if all the diseases are because of some kind of poisoning, then what do you think is a curative treatment? So for a toxin, you always require an antidote. So you require antidote to antidote the toxins. So to bring on cure, we should give true antidotes. Why are we using the word true antidotes here? Let's go and understand more about the antidotes. I think you have followed me here till here fine. So toxicological diseases and antidotes. Now, homeopathy is based on the law of antidotes. So what is the true antidote? Let's see. Now, antidotes, according to Stuart Close, are of three types. Okay. The first is the dynamical antidote, then the chemical, and then the mechanical antidote. Now, dynamical antidotes. What are dynamical antidotes? If asked in toxemia, it is homeopathy. So, why does he tell about dynamical antidote as homeopathy? I'll tell you. Now, dynamic antidotes are actually poisons with varying degree of power. When here I am telling about dynamical antidotes, please make it clear that in this pretext, what he dynamical means by dynamical antidote is drugs. Okay. So, dynamical antidotes or drugs are actually poisons with varying degree of power. That we also know, like some are acute medicine, some are deep acting, different degrees of powers. Now, they have the power to neutralize the substances and remove its effects. Now, these dynamical antidotes or drugs are having the power to neutralize the toxins. Now, it is the only true antidoting system. Now, dynamical antidotes are the true antidoting system. Now, this antidotes requires that the antidoting substance is similar to the poison and opposite in direction of the action. The same thing which I have been learning so many months, might be since few years, that if a drug, I'll just make it simple, if a drug is to act and cure a person in according to homeopathy, then the drug should be similar and working opposite, that it should be able to produce the same disease in a healthy, and should be able, then it will be able to cure the patient. So like that, a true antidoting system, or the true drug, is one which is able to produce symptoms similar to the poison, but is opposite in direction of the action. So what are chemical antidotes and mechanical antidotes? Now, chemical antidotes, they act on the poisons than its effects. They don't work on the effects, they work on the poison themselves. Now, they unite with the poisons and alter the poison physically and chemically. Okay. Then what are mechanical antidotes? Now, they just physically expel the substance from the body. That is mechanical antidotes. But the best antidoting system, as I already told, or the true antidoting system, is the dynamical antidotes, the homeopathy. So with this, that section is over about toxemias according to Stuart Close. Now let's see about idiosyncrasy and drug disease. Now for second year BHMS students, idiosyncrasy is not been taken because it is explained in aphorism 117. But because it is in Stuart Close, it might come as a question for you. You just have to understand it better. Now, what is idiosyncrasy? Or if you actually, we had, when I was doing BHMS, we had by hearted that aphorism because it was asked by our teachers, like you just have to tell it. And you are also in this process, believe me, you will be also able to do it and present it well. So, but just for the second year students, what is idiosyncrasy? Now, it's a peculiar constitution where some people, either by habit or by quality, are able to produce certain reaction to drugs. Now, if you see in the third BHMS portion, 117 aphorism comes under the drug proving section. Now, what is the context of why does it come in drug proving section? There, Henneman tells that if when you give a drug in a prover, now you have 10 provers and you gave a drug. Now, these 10 provers might be bringing up lot of symptoms. Now, in that, one prover might produce some different symptom which is produced only by that prover, and only very few provers produce that kind of symptom. Now, why did that prover produce that symptom? It's because of his constitution as well as the power of the drug that he produced it. Now, that constitution of the patient or the prover to produce the symptom is called as idiosyncrasy. For example, I'll give you an example if you're not understood. Like we have been proving Naxomica. Now, different set of symptoms came ahead. Constipation, difficulty, so many things. In that, only two provers brought the symptom, that is severe urging for stool. But remember, these two provers produced it because of their constitution. But when such symptom is produced by few provers, it becomes the characteristic symptom of that particular drug. That's why idiosyncrasy is so important in proving. But otherwise, if for general people, how do we understand idiosyncrasy? Now, if you see, generally also there are many patients around us who are having idiosyncrasy. It is their quality to respond to a particular, might be a thing, or respond to a particular substance, or respond to a drug. Now, there are two types of idiosyncrasies, that is inherited and acquired. So inherited idiosyncrasy is the one which I was telling to you about in proving. Okay. Now, inherited idiosyncrasy, it appears because of abuse of drugs by parents or ancestors. Especially, two drugs are commonly been abused in those days. Okay, I'm telling about those days, Henneman's period, because those days many medicines were given just simply without even knowing or studying their proper effects. And the most commonly given medicine those days was mercury and sulfur. Now, these two drugs, if our parents or ancestors have been abused by it, then the child who is born, that particular patient will have severe reaction if he is taking it even in a minute quantity. So because he has inherited it, it is called an inherited idiosyncrasy, and it is also because of the soric constitution, peculiar constitution of that particular person, that he brings on that symptom. So then what is acquired idiosyncrasy? Now, acquired idiosyncrasy is because of three main reasons. First is previous abuse of drugs. Suppose some person has been taking some drugs, you can label anything, like they've been taking something constantly. At one point of time, their body may just become sensitive to it. Okay. Then the second is soric constitution, and third is anaphylaxis. That is, if once one is poisoned by it, then the next time his body becomes hypersensitive to it. Okay. So that is about acquired idiosyncrasy. So with this, our first session, that is general pathology of homeopathy, is coming to an end. And if you have any doubts, please put it in your chat box, or you can mail me, and feel free. If I can help you out, I'll surely try my level best. And about my website, you people are the lucky people who have joined us here today, because all those who are visiting my Zoom are free to log into my and register into my website. And the first 200 registrations are free. And if you're logging on today, of course, I just believe it will be very beneficial for you and help you in the journey of Organon of Medicine. And two things before I wind it up, I would like to tell. Please don't take Stuart Close so easily and put it aside. Please don't take Organon so easily and put it aside. When we are a student, or when even I was a student, I always found Organon very interesting.